Hey guys, we wanted to take a minute to talk to you about why we chose to convert a school bus, because that seems to be the biggest question we get from people who aren't already in the Skoolie community. I think everyone in that community totally gets it and does a really good job of cheering each other on, but the average person watching stuff like this or family members we encounter sure don't seem to get it. So we figured making a video explaining why might make us seem a little less crazy. Ironically, I think the whole thing with COVID-19 has made some people go, okay, I get why you would want to escape. So I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but I think the biggest reason is we have spent a long time slowly moving towards a more minimal life, a life with less bills, a life with less responsibilities, and just the responsibilities that you hate, right? The job you hate, the chores you don't want to do, the big house you don't want to clean, things like that. But it just was kind of a natural progression of things, I think. A few years back, I know Shane had mentioned this as an option. Like, we could convert a school bus. I mean, I don't know that we even knew the Skoolie world existed at that point, but he was like, it'd be like an RV and it'd be totally cool. And I think I said a lot of F words and was like, there's no way I'm living on a bus. Like, that's insane. And then years later, I came back to him and said, what if we lived on a bus? And he was like,
so for me, my two things have always been either living on a catamaran and just sailing the ocean, or having property and being by myself, kind of like isolated community, self-sustainability. And then when I presented this, living on an RV type bus thing to Andrea, she just shot it down instantly. It was quite humorous.
Yeah.
Then when she called me and said, hey, I got this great idea, and don't laugh at me when I say it.
but what if
we lived on a bus? And I was like, yep, I said that a few years ago.
Yeah. so I think we just went down the rabbit hole on YouTube of like, I think kind of how people watch like HGTV or tiny houses, right? They're just like, oh my gosh, look at this. Wouldn't this be so cool? And I think we just watched Skoolie videos for a month straight. Like, we didn't watch normal TV. We just watched Skoolie tours. And I think from the moment we talked about the idea, within a month or two, we had found the bus. We were just kind of looking, like, dreaming. And we happened to find, we were looking on all the like typical websites and auction sites, and looking at all the typical places you look for school buses. And on a whim, I thought, I'm going to see if there's anything on Facebook Marketplace. And sure enough, there was someone in St. Louis, where we lived at the time, and it was a newer bus. It was a 2009. The bus we ended up getting was the 2009 ICRE 300. And I don't know, it was just like, when I opened it and read everything about it, I called Shane and was like, this is it. Like, I think I found our bus. And we went and saw it a couple days later and bought it. It happened fast at that point. I think once you decide you're going to do it, you just can't think about anything else and you do it. But back to what Shane said, I think one of the big things, one of the reasons why a bus makes sense, because I think what people ask a lot is, okay, fine, you want a tiny house or you want a mobile living situation. Why wouldn't you just get an RV, or even like, not a brand new RV because they're expensive, fine, but get an older RV and redo it.
Or just buy a small house.
Right? Like, we can build this to be exactly what we need. We can use it to go on trips. We can use it to get on our land quicker. Like Shane mentioned, we want a self-sustaining farm, and one of the biggest hurdles to jump over to get there was, okay, if we rent a place or whatever and then we buy land, obviously it'd be cool to find land that already has a house on it. But if we're living in an apartment in town and then we have to drive 20 plus minutes to our land, how often are we going to get out there to get stuff done? This just makes it so we can get on our land quicker and save money for our land quicker. Short term, obviously, we're putting a lot of money into this, not a lot, but money's going into this. But then once this is finished, we're not paying $1,000+ a month in rent and electric and all these things, and we can save a lot more money for the things that are important to us, like our farm, like getting Shane out of his 9-to-5 type job, and going more towards having the freedom that we want in our lives. So.
Well, and buses are cheaper than yurts, the overall cost. And being in South Carolina, we thought about a yurt because they're very cool. You can customize them now. You can actually connect two of them together. But being in South Carolina with hurricane season, we didn't want to have to deal with that. And I know that yurts are not hurricane proof. So then we thought of like the teepee type thing, which again, hurricanes.
And all this, we would need our land, right, to even have those houses, to have those be options as temporary housing. This kind of fit the bill for, not only is it something that we can have on our property as a temporary housing situation while we build the infrastructure of our farm and the long-term house that we want, but also if a hurricane comes, no, obviously a bus isn't hurricane proof, but we can hop in our bus and go. I don't know about people watching this, but like for us, and I think the average person, having a ton of money in savings so that you can leave town for a week while a hurricane comes in is not really very realistic. That's, $100 at best a night at a hotel. You have to eat out, blah, blah, blah. And, at this point, if there's a hurricane, we can hop in our bus and go.
And it's our house. So
and it's our house. We have everything with us, which is easier with kids too, because I don't know if you've ever tried to stay in a hotel room with 3 children, but it's I know my mom has. It's fun. But, so this was made the most sense because once we're done getting this situated, we can move out of our apartment and stay at a campsite or, national parks when they open back up, and different things of that nature while we work on looking for land. And then as soon as we find our land, we can immediately move on to it. So it was just it was the best of everything, I think, rolled into one. It gave us
the most options.
The most flexibility.
Once we're in the bus, we don't have rent anymore, obviously. If we stay at a national park or a campground, that's significantly cheaper than an apartment that you can find or, mortgage. So you're looking maybe $300-$400 max at that. But also it'd be fun for the kids because they'd be at a new place every couple months. They'd get to be on adventures close to the beach.
It kind of forces you outside more too, right?
So they'd be able to have a lot of fun by doing that. And then, like Andrea said, once we buy the property, we can just disconnect and drive right onto the property. And now we have our house on our property. Yeah. And we don't have to really worry about anything else after that.
Well, I think also long term, like we don't plan on living on a bus for the rest of our lives, but probably 5. I know, right? I'm like, what do we do?
Who knows?
But 5 years probably is the guess right now. But long term, it's. I feel like there were many times in our lives where we wanted to go on a trip or we wanted to do this or that, and again, it's hard to do that with kids. You have to consider the cost of hotels and having them in a car all day long, and it's just. Family road trips are always like this wonderful ideal that we, strive toward. But I think in reality, family road trips usually kind of suck. Like they're stressful and it's a lot going on. So this provides the freedom to hopefully, we'll see how it goes. Kids are kids, but to take those road trips. The goal is to have this done by next summer 2021, so we can go to a friend's wedding. And I guess we'll see at that point how it goes, but that'll kind of be the celebration of finishing it before we hunker down and save money to get our property. We want to long-term be off-grid, so getting solar set up and things like that. Kids are excited. I think a lot of people's comments are things like, well, are the kids going to have a separate room?
They are so excited about their bunk beds, being able to decorate them how they want. And then again, it just forces them to be outside more.
And we're a super tight-knit family anyway. I know my mom made the comment of like, you guys are going to be like all up in each other's space. They are anyway. We could have a 3,000 square foot house and my kids are still going to be under tow all the time.
We originally had a 2,500 square foot house. So about 9 years ago, Andrew and I both had full-time jobs. She was doing the 9-to-5 thing. I was working in EMS. We got married, we bought the house, did everything we were supposed to, buy the house, buy the cars, get your, 10, 15 year house, and then you're set. We loved our house. It wasn't something we truly loved. It wasn't beautiful
worth the
house.
Sacrifice it took to have it, I think. To get up every morning and go to a job that
she was miserable.
Eventually, even at a point where we both loved our jobs, I think it still wasn't worth it. We still had friends up in Seattle that we wanted to go see for the weekend, and we had to plan, months ahead of time to take a weekend trip to Seattle. Our house was too much, and our car was too much, and we were spending all this money on trips to Target, me more than him, Target, Starbucks, all these things that we didn't need, but
for things to fill this house.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we were happy with, but we spent the majority of the time in 2 rooms anyways. And, you know.
Our oldest was about 4.5 at the time when I walked away from my job. And we had talked for years about homeschooling and how we could handle that. And we knew that if I walked away from my job, that was kind of it, because I was going to just walk out on something that I had built a whole career around. And if I left in the way that I planned on, I was going to kind of ruin my chances of getting another job in that field ever again. So that was kind of the defining moment of, hey, we're done with this life and we don't want this anymore and we're not happy. And I refuse to go to a job that I hate, that I cry on my way there, that I'm away from my baby. Like, I'm paying someone to make barely more than what I'm paying them to watch my child. And I think all of that just kind of pushed us to reassess, like, how can we cut back, like, things that we spend money on, you know. And that's when we sold our house and, you know, moved into smaller spaces, and then thought about going to chiropractic school, moved to St. Louis, and then also decided that wasn't, you know, that ultimately we were going to have him trapped in a building from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And don't get me wrong, chiropractic is amazing, and there's a million reasons why it would have been cool to go down that path. But I think long term, like, both of us, we want to do things with our hands, and we want to be outside in the sun and the fresh air. And I think we also want to show our kids, like, yeah, we're 35, 36, and, like, to everyone else, that's it. That's when you're supposed to be solid in your career, solid in your house, like, your life choices. Now's not the time to reassess things. Like, you hunker down and do what you need to do to be able to retire when you're 50, 60, whatever. But we don't want to wait till we're 50 or 60 to do the things that we want to do. We want to live our life now, and I want to show my kids, like, it doesn't matter if you have a fancy house or a fancy car or all of these things that you don't really give a shit about anyway, just to impress people when you're not happy living the life that you want to live. And so I think this was just a huge culmination of a million things, and it made sense for us, and we took the jump, and here we are. And I mean, I'd be lying if I said there weren't moments where I was like, oh my God, we bought a bus? Like, we're going to live in a bus? But for the most part, like, I asked Shane this morning, like, do you dream about the bus? Because it's all I can think about. Yeah. And I'm just so freaking excited. Like, I'm so excited. And I think the biggest message I can give anyone who is, you know, not happy with the job they're in, not happy with the life they're leading, maybe a bus isn't the answer for you, right? Like, cool, whatever. But reassess that. I don't care how old you are. That's crazy to live a life that you're not happy with because you're supposed to, because somebody told you that was the way things were supposed to go. Yeah, like, I mean, sometimes you got to blow your life up to start over. And I mean, we have multiple times.
4 times.
blown our lives up. And I think the more we shed the bullshit expectations, pardon my language, that it's just like,
ultimately, we don't care what other people think about us. And
we strongly suggest you don't either. It's way better that way.
I know that.
Plus, it's kind of fun to rile people
One
up.
thing that I want to do for my kids is raise them to be just strong, independent people that will stick up for themselves and anybody that needs help, but also doesn't care what other people believe or think about them. And that's how we are trying to live our lives, to show them.
So, yeah.
So by doing a bus, it's basically a big, this is what we want to do, and we're going to do it regardless what anybody says. Yeah.
That being said, the support of people obviously makes it a lot easier, right? Like, I think slowly people in our family are getting on board and maybe don't get it, right? And it's not for them, and I'm cool with that. Like, I totally get that for the average person, living on a bus is a nightmare, right? Like, yeah. It's a nightmare. I get that. But for us, it makes sense. And like I said, we homeschool / unschool our kids. So we're always, like, I'm with them 24 hours a day helping facilitate their education. So there's not, I mean, square footage doesn't matter. It's just more crap I have to maintain and clean when I don't have time to do that, because I'm trying to hang out with my kids and let them explore and live their lives. So, and I think if we can teach our children to be happy with less and live a simple life, what a gift, right? Like, you know, and maybe years from now they'll be in therapy and talk about their weird hippie parents and how they hated
living on a
that
bus.
They had a composting toilet on a bus. But that's their issue to deal with, I guess. I mean, it's going to be something, right? I'd rather it be that we were weird hippies that went after our goals and loved them too much. And yeah, but anyway, if you have any questions or comments, write them below. We would love to hear any words of support. I mean, if you think we're crazy, cool. Tell us why that works too. I don't care. Don't forget to hit subscribe and follow us along, because it'll be entertaining, if nothing else, right?
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add? Okay.
Hey, Mom!
Hey, Mom!